What's going on, guys? Zach Klinger here with another Ranch Armor install video. Today we are going to be covering Can-Am side steps for the crew cab. We'll kind of get into it a little bit. I think the biggest question I get asked is center bracket orientation. So we'll cover that first, kind of briefly go over hardware and then toolage required. And then the next biggest question I get asked is where do I cut my plastics? So we'll also dive into that as well. If you guys want to follow me, we'll start getting into it. So diving into the most asked question is bracket orientation. So as you're at the tailgate of the vehicle, take your brackets like this. So the small squares will face towards the rear of the vehicle. The large will face towards the front. There is a left and a right bracket. So obviously we're holding them in the correct orientation. So this would be your driver side bracket, two spaced out holes on the bottom, tight holes at the top. And then now we're flipping, so this would be your passenger. Just so I can show you guys, and I'll isolate them now. So our passenger bracket, and then our driver side bracket. Now remember, these large openings will face towards the front of the vehicle, so it will be bolted to the vehicle like such. Getting into our hardware install here. So starting from front to rear here, this is how it is going to be on the vehicle. So you got your front set of bolts right here, so one on either side, along with its corresponding washer and nut. This is going to go into our brackets that I'll be showing you where those get installed, the left and right ones. And then this is our rear hardware right here. Obviously two per side with the corresponding flat and lock nut. Relatively simple. And then now if we pan right over to here, we got our self-tapping bolts. Now what these are going to be for is to put our left and right brackets onto the frame of the vehicle. Like I said, we will show you where those go here in a minute. Now we're getting into where we cut the plastic on the machine. So it's going to be the same for both the passenger and the driver side. As you can see, Can-Am kind of already has this outline for us, which is very nice. What we're going to do is go ahead and we're going to trim on the outer edge of this pre-cut line right here. And we're going to go ahead and delete this guy out of the equation, and then we'll kind of get into it after this quick little time lapse of how I do trim it slightly a little bit more just to make it easier to install these side steps. Like I said, I'll show you that extra that I just trimmed off. That was kind of that last little tidbit right there. I generally try to get this as flush as possible, just try to make it as clean looking. Just go ahead and notch that out just like that. That exposes these two holes right here that go through the frame. That's where those one of those long bolts is going to go. It's only one per side, like I said. You'll see which hole it goes in once we get that side step up here. Let's go ahead and move into cutting the rear plastic now, and then from there I'll show you what to disassemble on your body plastics in order to be able to mount those left and right brackets. So moving on to the rear plastic, and like I said, this is going to mimic on the other side as well. So what I like to do is I'm going to draw a line pretty much like this. Now if you look under here, you'll see where the frame runs. You're pretty much stopping right at the frame junction here, and then you're just going to kind of come over. Now, it is not 110% necessary to cut this portion of the skid plate. However, I find that it does make this install that much easier. So yeah, you could either do it, don't do it. I do recommend doing it, at least notching to here. Cutting back to here, what that allows you to do is fit a wrench right here a lot nicer to get onto this bolt when we go to fasten our side step onto the frame. So just like that, like I said, just trim that skid plate, kind of makes it nice and easy, gives you a lot more room to work with under here. So now we'll go ahead and we'll get into what body panels and what hardware to remove in order to get our side bolsters mounted. All right, so getting into body panel removals. So if you guys are familiar with Can-Am, then you know most of this is a T30. For those of you that are not familiar with Can-Am, most of these hardware are T30. You'll also need a push pin removal tool for a push pin here. Without further ado, let's get into popping these panels and getting the bracket in. It should allow for enough. So pretty much just like that. We'll go ahead and pop out this retainer cap that Can-Am provides. Now we'll get into mounting the bracket. So you can see our tight holes are at the top. wide holes are at the bottom. These are already pre-done in your Can-Am frame. Doesn't matter if it's the open cab or the limited, these will be there. The only issue you may encounter is obviously manufacturer specification. They got a tolerance just as much as we all do, so you may have to drill these out slightly with a 3/16 bit, and some of you may not. It just depends on your luck that day. Getting into the hardware that we need to install our driver's side bracket, as we mentioned before, the self-tappers, we're going to go ahead and take 4 of those. Now, something to remember with your self-tappers is they do have a lock washer and a flat washer. Please ensure that all 4 of them have it. Now, remember, you don't need Milwaukee, but it definitely helps. So, like I said, some of you, it may be 3/16. For some of you, it's going to be a 7/32 bit. And like I said, you're just going to enlarge them ever so slightly so they will accept those F-types. I don't know what it is on Can-Am's end. It could just be powder coat. It could be just the frame spec, but so what I'm doing here is essentially just starting all 4 of these holes, so it makes it easier once I get my bracket up there. You don't have to do this. You can do it with the bracket there, holding it, and then send them through, but if they give you a little bit of a fight, it just kind of makes it a little more of a struggle than it needs to be. And now, if you guys look, that little cap we popped out, there's our bolster. Now you can go ahead and reassemble this side, and then we'll get into actually putting the side steps on the vehicle. So as far as reinstalling all this, it is the exact same order as you took it off. There is no change to the hardware. Do keep in mind your large flat washers will go on this upright column. Your small ones will be along the floorboard. If you have your OEM nets, they may or may not have washers. Dealership might not put them on. But, you know, either way, as long as you got the bolt in there, you're golden. All right, so now getting into the side step install. So obviously we'll be starting on our driver's side. So you will repeat this exact same procedure for the passenger side of the vehicle. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with the 9/16 bolt. I find it easiest to hang these side steps from the center, especially when you're doing this by yourself. It's gonna make life a little bit easier. So I use a 9/16 socket. It can be accomplished with a deep well. It's probably gonna be a little bit easier with a shallow, but tomato, tomato, potato, potato, we're still gonna get it done. It's best to hook the rear side. You'll kind of feel it go into its home, and it'll be something to that effect right about there. So this is gonna go ahead and allow you to kind of get this bolt close enough to where you can get it started by hand. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. You may have to force it just a little bit. And we're just gonna hit it a couple threads, mostly just to secure the side step up there. So this way you're not trying to balance it doing the front, balancing it doing the rear. Like I said, this is for you solo players out there. We're getting into the front hardware install portion of this. So let me click on my handy dandy light here. So now you can see when I was talking about the holes lining up, don't mind that, our powder coat's durable. Our shop floor is just dirty at the time. It's been raining here, so I'm just gonna stick it through that hole. And now we'll go ahead and we'll put our flat washer and our lock nut on the rear side of it. Now you're gonna stick your hand up right in this dark hole right here. For those of you that are scared of spiders, this is a good time to get over that fear if your machine's been sitting for a bit. Remember, start everything by hand, all right? We're not going to Hulk it down. So now that we got that started by hand, we'll go get our rear hardware set in, and then we will tighten from the front to the rear and then to the center for final assembly. You may have to give her a little beating just to kind of get her into the hole here. What you're gonna do is just keep giving her some gentle love taps till you can see the 2 holes emerge up here. And then there, now you can clearly see both of those holes in our slots. Yeah, once you get these bolts in by hand, like I said, up there in the front, we'll go ahead, we'll tighten up this rear section, we'll tighten up the front section, and we'll tighten up the middle section. And remember, this process will be the same for the passenger side. So, like I said earlier, as far as cutting the plastic, that's why it makes life that much easier. You don't have to, but it does give you a heck of a lot more room to work with. It makes setting this in place easier. Just a world of things. Like I said, it's not 100% mandatory to cut as much as I do, but one, it's not really compromising anything's structural or integrity per se, and it's not really gonna put any parts of the body in danger from this skid plate being missing or that front plastic being cut. So after you go ahead and you get everything tightened up, remember you start in the rear, hit the front, hit the center, what I like to do is I like to go ahead and give them a good test. And they don't move. So that is the Ranch Armor side step install. Like you see, durability at its finest. Even holds, I'm 210 pounds jumping on that full force with no fear of falling on my face. See you guys on the next install video.